Alrighty, so what I have done is basically I set up a Arch Linux install versus OpenSuse Tumbleweed NET installer, and I'm specifying NET installer because Arch Linux installer by default is also a NET installer, so I wanted to compare apples to apples. And I'm starting off with Arch, and both of these I've already installed and I recorded the install, so I'm playing back the recording of the install and talking about it. And then when it comes to the install time for both of them, I'm going to split screen it and show both of them. Theoretically, that's what I'm planning. So Arch Linux and Tumbleweed are both rolling releases. Why would you prefer one over the other? Depends on what you want, what you need, etc., etc. Arch Linux is more bleeding edge than Tumbleweed. Not by a lot, but it is more. It's also potentially not as stable as Tumbleweed. And I say potentially because when you go to do a Arch Linux update, they highly recommend that you go to the wiki and look up the update to make sure that it's not going to break your system. In OpenSuse Tumbleweed, that rolling release is not quite as bleeding edge, but it is more stable. You will not get an update until it has passed all of their open build testing. When it does pass all of their testing, then you'll get the update. For example, on my Tumbleweed, I haven't gotten an update in about 3 days probably because something is stuck and not building and potentially going to break a system, so therefore it's not pushing that update out. On Tumbleweed, theoretically, at least in my experience, the longer it goes in between giving you an update, like for example 3 or 4 days, the next update that I get is probably going to be pretty large. On Arch, if you update every day, there will be an update for you every day, and there will be times that there are multiple updates available to you each day. So having said that, let's go ahead and go through this Arch install. I start my timer and it begins to install. And I gotta say, the Arch install is not anywhere near as hard as it used to be. It's actually pretty easy. And granted, I've used Linux since 1998. I should be able to install Arch. And the reason I didn't install Arch in the past is because it wasn't easy. But now it's actually pretty easy. You just type out Arch install. That's a built-in script that is part of the installer. And then you go, it basically walks you step by step on everything that you need to do. And you'll see here in a minute that if you accidentally skip a step, it will prompt you that, hey, there's a step missing that you need to go back and fix. Because I did accidentally skip the drive section. And it'll tell me in a minute. You'll see that. As you can tell, there's no GUI. There's no point and click on Arch. It is all text based. And as long as you select Pipewire during that audio selection, you will have Pipewire available and to be used as default. And here I decided I'm searching too far, so I did the little the leaning to the right, or press that thing to search, and that's what I did. I select multilib here because as far as I know, multilib is necessary for 32-bit options. Like Wine needs 32-bit, for most games are 32-bit. That's why I selected the multilib. It does take it just a few minutes. It takes it, not a few minutes, it takes it a little bit of time to see the drives and figure out what you've got there. and I skip the disk layout, and it's still going to tell me there's a missing configuration, disk layout. This is actually the second time around. The first time around, I forgot to push record. It happens. And the first time around, I didn't skip anything, and I didn't have to go back. So, yeah, it is what it is. And now we start the install. So that is Arch. Now we're going to check out the install, the data entry part of the installer for OpenSuse. Alrighty. So this is OpenSuse Tumbleweed NET installer. And you can see there, I also started a timer. And the timer bit between the two is personal curiosity. I really want to know. I know Arch is faster to install. I just want to know by how much is it faster to install. And since I'm doing all this, I might as well record this part of it and share it with you guys, right? So it definitely takes a little longer for it to spin up. The hardware detection takes a while, and that really does take a while. The OpenSuse installer is graphical user interface. It is point and click. Once the installer finally starts, it's actually quicker to get through it. Most of it's done for you. And now we have the installer. As a net install on both of these different operating systems, you do have to have internet for it to actually work. Yes, there is a license agreement in OpenSuse. Sad but true. Hit yes on the online repositories. Leave the defaults. Will be just fine. And I'd pick KDE Plasma. That's what I use. That's pretty much the only thing it's not the only thing I like, it's the only thing I prefer. So I did a KDE Plasma on Arch, did a KDE Plasma on Tumbleweed. SUSE is very good about automatically detecting my location. I use the same password here, and it will also complain about it being a weak password, because it is. Now right here, I disable the firewall so that I can find my printers in the house. And I'm behind a firewall, a router, so that is a hardware firewall. And then I select a host name, my own personal host name, so that when I'm using KDE Connect, it doesn't set the name of the computer to be OpenSuse.localhost or whatever strange long thing it is. I prefer not to have that. So now we're starting installation. I'll let that initiate, and then I'll do the split screen. Outstanding. So there you have it, folks. Almost a full 4.5 minutes or so longer to install OpenSuse Tumbleweed. You do get more packages. You get more of a complete desktop with Tumbleweed. You theoretically will have to install less things to make it something to use. Arch Linux, a decent amount quicker to install. I think just as easy to install. And it gives you a basic slate that you can install whatever you need to and not have extra packages that you don't need. Other than that, both of them are really good systems. Use whichever one you need, whichever one you like. If you're doing a rolling release, if you're new to Linux, go with Tumbleweed. If you've got experience, you don't care to tinker, go with Arch. And you just about can't go wrong with either one of them, honestly. I recommend Tumbleweed personally, but that's just personally. But as always, till next time, thanks for watching.